the true king of the monsters is Space Godzilla. So my dang old brothers challenged me to talk about my favorite kaiju in the Godzilla monster universe, and as you can tell from this video that is completely not biased in any shape or form, I have of course chosen the best boy, the crystal from space, the mutated Godzilla, the best alien kaiju, and the all-workout days are leg days and shoulder days lunking beast known as Space Godzilla. Oh yeah, and my brothers chose these monsters. But basically, we each gather information on our respective kaijus to see who is the true king of the monsters. And to make things interesting, we added some rules. Rule number 1. You can only fully deep dive research into your respective monsters, and we are not allowed to deep dive into each other's monsters. Rule number 2. All allowed information will be combined to create one cracked kaiju that will be pitted up against all the other cracked kaijus that have been combined into their respective monster. So what do we mean by all information? That means any movie, video games, comics, or even just the new Magic the Gathering cards. Any of that information is free game, as long as it's some reliable resource or some resource that's legit. You can use that information to add to our combined kaiju. But there are some exceptions and things that we have banned, leading to rule number 3, in attempts to level the battlefield. We made a list of information that cannot be used. For example, here's a quick list of things that cannot be used. Godzilla Earth monsters. According to my brothers, they are too cracked. Godzilla's massive, and King Ghidorah is like basically the whole universe, or like he basically bends space and time, so we needed them. If Space Godzilla was in there, we totally would have added him. Shin Godzilla just mainly focuses on Godzilla, so we just decided to not add that. The Monsterverse monsters. The new line of Godzilla creatures, we decided not to add them. If Space Godzilla was in there too, we would add it, but we just decided not to add it, even though it wouldn't have made too much of a difference, because, you know, my boy could have taken those Monsterverse boys, but you know, we'll take what we can, you know, what we can salvage. Final Wars King Ghidorah, he was kind of cracked. He was kind of like a mixture of like robot and King Ghidorah, so like we just decided not to add that one. And we also banned Mecha King Ghidorah. Yep, that's basically everything. With the rules explained and out of the way, we can now jump into Space Godzilla's information buffet to make the ultimate kaiju combo. So, let's talk about his strengths and weaknesses, starting with his strengths. And his first strength has to be that he was birthed from a black hole. As theorized in the movie, Space Godzilla was birthed from a black hole from Godzilla's blood, either getting it from Biollante or the Mothra that flew into space. And I consider this a strength, and I will explain that later, so just stuff that into your back pocket. I will be referencing it later. Next, his ability to create these crystals. Thus, he is able to change his own form. He can become this big rock boy that can fly through the sky, and also he can change the environment around him. And these crystals act as a power source that power him up, while also helping him create stuff like shields and also like these levitation energy, so it's cracked. His next strength is his lightning blast, and how it basically differs from Godzilla's blast, where Godzilla's blast is mainly fire. His blast is lightning, and it's pretty nice because he doesn't really have to move his head. He can kind of just like blast wherever. His lightning will arc and create its own path to hit its own mark. You'll see as he's flying around, his head kind of stays stationary, but the lightning's just like, I'm auto-locking onto dang old Godzilla or the area around Godzilla. So yeah, he's got auto-lock lightning. And the next strength I want to talk about is his tail spike attack, and how he's able to pierce through freaking metal and able to lift things as heavy as this dumb robot and just chuck it as far as he can. And his next strength is object levitation. He's able to levitate himself and also levitate the things around him. And size and mass doesn't seem to matter, for he's able to lift Godzilla himself, so like, you could lift some pretty heavy stuff with his levitation ability. And so yeah, that's definitely one of his other strengths, is object levitation, whether it be himself or the things around him. So the next strength I want to talk about is his electric magnetic pulse. So basically, Space Godzilla has this constant flow of electricity surrounding him, and this power just constantly grows with the amount of either crystals around him or various objects that power him. For example, in the movie, there's this electrical tower that he sets up by, and it's emitting a lot of energy, and he's harnessing that energy. You'll see the electricity emitting around him, just going into his dang old shoulders, you know, powering him up. And having this constant flow of energy, it seems that at some points he's able to unleash a massive pulse of electricity, shutting down any electrical tech, such as the freaking airplanes around him, and also the freaking dumb robot. And the last strength I wanted to talk about from the movie has to be his crystal rockets. So, you know those crystals that he's got laying around? Yeah, they can be turned into rockets. How? I don't know. they got rockets, I guess. Why? Because it looks cool, and it's just a really neat defense. Alright, so now let's jump into the video game Space Godzilla. So, the game character is pretty similar to the movie Godzilla, so there's a lot of abilities that I'm not going to mention again, because, you know, they're pretty much the same. The main thing I want to talk about that I got from the game has to be his levitation movement speed. This ability to levitate and move around quite fast is definitely going to help him reposition, and that will definitely be helpful for the combined Kaiju. Alright, next strengths will focus on the Rivals comics that was focusing on Space Godzilla himself. So there are two things that I want to grab from this comic. So the first thing I want to focus on is Space Godzilla being able to crash land onto a planet, creating a massive crater, whilst also looking unscathed. It definitely ties into that one scene in the movie where he just basically lands on Earth and everything just explodes around him. But like this, he's moving at crazy high speeds, and he creates a big old crater. He's just like, yeah, I just did that, whatever. Anyways, later in the comic, he fights this weird alien thing, and at some point that alien thing turns into a black hole, and he was somehow able to destroy that black hole. Let me say that again. He was somehow able to defeat a black hole. So yeah, that's the next strength. He's able to combat a black hole. And some last comments for the comic Space Godzilla. He could rapidly turn a planet into crystals. And according to the film and also this comic, it seems like he does not like young kaijus. And that's pretty much the strengths I want to talk about for the rival comic. Then lastly, the last strengths I want to cover is Magic the Gathering cards. And these cards give him the abilities of Trample, Mutate, and Death Touch. So Magic the Gathering, the Trample ability, allows it so blocking doesn't really matter. Basically, if an attack is stronger than a defense, then the excess damage from that attack will still go through. Next, the ability Mutate basically allows a creature to combine with another creature, but it kind of doesn't work for this Kaiju combo thing, so that's probably going to be something to get rid of. Then Death Touch. Basically, any damage dealt to a creature will result in that creature's death. So I'm just going to eat these two abilities, being Mutate and Death Touch, because you can't really use Mutate, and Death Touch is kind of dummy OP. Oh look, I scratched you! Oh look, oh now you're dead. Too bad. That's Death Touch pretty much. That's pretty much all I want to talk about his strengths that I've gathered from my boy. Now let's talk about his weaknesses. And his first weakness has to be his dang old movement speed while walking, or moving with just his legs. His leg movement speed is severely lacking, so he usually resorts to levitation if he has to travel any great distance. His next, and probably his greatest weakness, has to be close range combat, for he has no real way of defending himself from bite attacks. So if you're able to get in like his core area, like you get past his tail, and you also get past like his levitation ability, you can pretty much chomp at him and like he can't really do anything until he like pushes you away or tries to levitate away from you. So he is quite vulnerable to close range combat. And this next weakness also coincides with the close range combat, and that is Pierce Energy Drain. Basically what I mean by this is that you could drain his energy if you were to bite him, it seems. In the movie, Godzilla was biting Space Godzilla, and in turn, you could see Godzilla draining some of the energy from him, as noted by some of the characters in the movie. Now I'm not sure if the creature that's biting him gains the power from Space Godzilla, but it's definitely draining from Space Godzilla's overall power. Alright, and Space Godzilla's next weakness is definitely explosive damage. For Space Godzilla is able to handle Godzilla's blast, but his crystals are quite weak to explosive damage. And this weakness to explosions leads to my next weakness, which is his shoulder crystal power source. For it seems a big source of Space Godzilla's power is his crystal shoulders. For once these crystals are gone, you could see Space Godzilla moving a lot more slowishly, and also the fact that he doesn't really levitate that much after he loses his shoulders, and then also on top of that, he also isn't blocking Godzilla's blast with his shield that he normally does. So you definitely know that he's drained quite a lot once his two shoulders were gone. Then lastly, the final weakness I want to talk about is this dumb freaking robot that doesn't even deserve to be named from my own mouth. So I just let my brother do the handling because I don't want to talk about this freaking robot that was just third-partying the whole time and just freaking having explosive rockets, shooting lasers, and just straight up tackling my boy like, frick that guy, you know. Take it over.
Well, howdy. This is the Bear King Lou making a guest appearance on this video in hopes to better enlighten you about a particular kaiju that I just really don't care about. Yeah, that's right. We're going to talk about a trashy kaiju, and no, not Baragon this time. This is Mogira, or the Dirt Dragon, or Mole, when translated to English. This blocky, Roblox-looking Megazord ripoff somehow is considered the Earth's mightiest weapons for the Kaiju. Really? This stiff Tin Man somehow gave Space Godzilla a hard time. I'm sorry, but I believe that rocks can breathe before I believe this Walmart brand SCP-173 can help kill the Space G. I'm sorry, it's just too pathetic. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for having me. All right, bye.
But yeah, that's everything I want to talk about for his strengths and weaknesses. So now we could just go into the roasting battle and explain why I think this combined kaiju would be better than the other combined kaijus. This is basically just a roasting session, just to say why my boy is better than these boys, and explain why the abilities I have can combat some of their abilities. First, let's talk about the knockoff gold three-headed noodle dragon that thinks it's a king just because it has king in its name, also known as the King Ghidorah. So yeah, this guy mainly relies on his lightning attack, his bites, and also just the fact that he can fly. That's what I pretty much know from this dude. So why is my guy strong against lightning attacks? I mean, I do lightning myself, and also I power up from electricity and lightning. If he does lightning attacks, I can basically just charge up my shoulder boys and, get a bit more stronger, and I don't really have to use a tower or build some of my crystal towers, so that is pretty nice. But in turn, since I do lightning attacks, I probably won't affect him that much, since he should be resistant to lightning, so that kind of sucks. So I would have to rely on my gravitational poles, just chucking them around with my levitation, just as I did to Godzilla. SpaceGodzilla would also have to rely on his crystal rockets. That'll be his main way of doing damage, because he does not want to get in close range, because he would lose that, because 3 heads against 1 is not a good thing, and I don't even know if I'd be able to reach him with my head, because his head's got crazy reach. So yeah, King Ghidorah, as long as I stay away and keep away from his dang old noodle heads from biting me, I should be alright. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I want to say about King Ghidorah and what I have to do against that thing. And I'm pretty sure there's some other crazy things that he could do that I have no idea about, because I'm not able to deep dive into it. But from those base things that I think all of the King Ghidorahs will have, that's how he can combat those things, or that's the stuff that he has to worry about. So now let's jump into Lizard Boy, also known as the Godzillas. In some way, Space Godzilla was created because of this man's blood. So I have to give him props for that. But now we can talk about why Space Godzilla is a lot tougher than the boy Godzilla. Especially if we were to go off the movie, he absolutely gets whooped in their first encounter. He just freaking annihilates him in the first couple of minutes of meeting up with him. He just flies around lasering him so he can't even reach him. And then whenever he tried to do his laser attack, fire breath attack, he was able to pop up this shield that just totally deflects it and sends it off somewhere else. Also, Godzilla was not the one to destroy his shoulder crystals. It was that dumb freaking robot, and that's why, it's an uneven match. The only reason Godzilla even had a chance was because freaking dumb robot was able to destroy my freaking shoulders. So then now, he doesn't have that robot with him. Godzilla nor King Ghidorah can really destroy my shoulders, since they don't really have this kind of piercing / explosive damage to really blow up the shoulders. So I should be able to operate at full power, allowing me to levitate and use all my abilities that were probably weakened once those shoulders were destroyed. So as long as I can keep my barrier up to block Godzilla's laser, and if I keep my power up, I should be able to keep my distance, because I'm definitely going to win in the Pokken game. If any of them gets close, it's going to be rough, because they could just, bite me, they could scratch at me, and it'd be hard to do anything. Alright, and that's pretty much everything I know for the Godzillas, other than the special abilities that I don't really remember too many of, and my brother will surely cover them. But there's also one last thing I want to talk about for Godzilla specifically, that I want to dig my hand deep into that pocket that I told you to remember. And now is the time. And that is that Space Godzilla is the mutated blood of Godzilla. Now, why does this matter? Why is this a buff? Why do I consider this a strength for this kaiju combo battle? Well, if you know, my brother will be combining his Godzilla to create his big boy, his kaiju combo. And if Space Godzilla is the mutated blood of Godzilla, then in turn, that would mean the combined kaiju Godzilla should also in turn be the blood that is mutated in Space Godzilla, whatever my brother does to say that his combined Godzilla is stronger than my Space Godzilla, we don't even know what abilities my Space Godzilla would have got from his combined Godzilla. So in turn, him strengthening his Godzilla by adding all these abilities may in turn strengthen my Space Godzilla because it's his blood. So strengthen the boy as much as you like, for in turn you are just strengthening Space Godzilla. So yeah, that's pretty much it. As long as he can keep his distance and poke from afar, he pretty much has a decent shot. And on top of that, it would also have to depend on, the various playing fields. Like, would they be fighting each other all at the same time? Or would they be fighting each other one-on-one? Like these big kaijus. I think it'd be interesting if they fought at the same time, 1v1v1 is just, free-for-all, these three going at it. But it would also depend on the stage, like where would they be fighting? Would they be fighting by the water? Would they be fighting on land? Would Space Godzilla have his crystals set up already? Or would they kind of just start in this random zone that nobody really has any access to an upper hand? There's many elements that could infect this battle. But purely on just getting into the midst of a fight. As long as Space Godzilla can keep his distance, I believe he has a decent chance of fighting these boys. And yeah, that's pretty much the video. That's just me talking about my boy Space Godzilla and how I think he would fare against these cracked versions of Godzilla and King Ghidorah. So if you want to see what my brothers said, how they roasted me and what they did to combine their kaijus, then I'll post their videos at the end of this video, so then you can click the link and see what they say. Even if they come up with some crazy crack stuff, like I still like my boy, the big shoulder chest boy, I don't know, I just like him. So yep, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye now. Oh yeah, and the reason why Space Godzilla is the king of the monsters is because he can build his own crystal kingdom and has his own throne. Also, he's topped off with a crown. So, boom, true king. Alright, bye-bye now.